Imagine looking at yourself in a mirror. You probably don't think about the fact that something is missing, something that many of our distant relatives still have today. A tail. Yes, millions of years ago, our evolutionary ancestors had tails, but somewhere along the way, that tail disappeared. So the question is, why did humans lose their tails? And the answer is hidden deep inside our DNA. Around 20 to 25 million years ago, the evolutionary lineage leading toward today's great apes began taking a different path, and one of the biggest changes was the loss of the external tail. This wasn't something that happened overnight. There wasn't a single ancient ape that suddenly woke up and realized it had lost its tail. Instead, it happened through generations, over millions of years. Small genetic changes, changes in development, changes that were eventually passed down until the tail was gone. And today, humans, chimpanzees, gorillas, and other great apes share that ancient tailless heritage. But here's where the story gets really interesting, because scientists have now found a major clue inside one of our genes. The gene is called TBXT. TBXT plays an important role during early embryonic development, including the development of the tail. And in apes, scientists discovered something unusual inside this gene, a piece of DNA called an ALU element. This particular insertion is found in apes, but not in monkeys with external tails. And that tiny difference may have played a major role in changing how TBXT is processed. The result? A different version of the gene's RNA can be produced, and that can affect how the developing embryo forms a tail. But scientists didn't stop there. They tested the idea. Researchers introduced similar genetic changes into mice, and some of those mice developed shorter tails, or no tails at all. That's incredible. A tiny change in DNA can influence whether an entire body structure develops. But now comes the biggest question. Why would losing a tail ever be useful? And this is where we need to be careful. Scientists still don't have one definitive answer. There are several possibilities. Maybe losing the tail helped our ancestors adapt to a different style of movement. Maybe it changed how their bodies balanced and moved through their environment. Or maybe the original genetic change happened by chance and later became common because it didn't prevent our ancestors from surviving and reproducing. Evolution doesn't always work like a designer. It doesn't sit down, make a plan, and build the perfect animal. Instead, genetic variations appear. The environment tests them, and over enormous periods of time, some variations become more common than others. And there's an even stranger part of this story. When researchers created the tail loss related TBXT changes in mice, they also observed an increased risk of neural tube defects in some of the animals. That tells us something important about evolution. Evolution involves trade offs. A change that produces one advantage can sometimes come with a cost. Our ancestors didn't get a perfect upgrade, they got a different biological solution. And somehow, that solution became part of the lineage that eventually led to us. But if humans lost their tails, why do we still have a tailbone? Look at the very bottom of your spine. That small structure is called the coccyx, or simply the tailbone. It isn't a fully developed external tail, but it is part of the skeletal structure inherited from our evolutionary history. It's like a tiny reminder of something our ancestors once had, a feature that disappeared but left evidence behind. And that's what makes human evolution so fascinating. Our bodies are not just machines built from scratch. They're more like living history books. Every bone, every gene, and sometimes even the structures we no longer use can tell us something about where we came from. Our ancestors changed, their environments changed, their DNA changed, and eventually, their descendants became us. So, why did humans lose their tails? The honest answer isn't because humans didn't need them anymore. It's much more complicated, a combination of genetic changes, developmental biology, evolutionary pressures, and millions of years of natural history helped shape the tailless apes we see today. And one of the most fascinating clues may be hidden inside that tiny TBXT gene, a tiny piece of DNA connected to a change that affected an entire body structure. Today, you don't have a tail. You probably don't even notice its absence. But every time you sit down, your tailbone is quietly carrying a piece of your evolutionary history, a reminder that humans weren't always built exactly the way we are today. And here's the craziest part: evolution isn't finished. The human body is still changing, our environment is still changing, and our DNA is still changing, which means that millions of years from now, some future species may look at our skeleton and ask the exact same question we're asking today. Why did they look like that? Because evolution doesn't write its story in years, it writes it in millions of generations. And sometimes all it takes is one tiny change in DNA to rewrite the future. If you enjoyed this journey through human evolution, subscribe, because there are still countless mysteries hidden inside the human body waiting to be explained.